Hi, and welcome to the Kids Yoga Podcast, the place for all things kids yoga. My name is Jessica Mougis, and after teaching kids yoga for over a decade and being immersed in the industry, I created this podcast as a warm and supportive place for parents, teachers, caregivers, and kids yoga professionals to gather. Episodes include conversations with kids yoga teachers, business owners, and authors, child development experts, informational episodes on specific kids yoga topics, yoga adventures for children, and even the voices of children themselves. It is my hope that you can come here each week and gain inspiration and form connection with your fellow kids yoga community. Welcome to the Kids Yoga Podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Hi, and welcome back to the Kids Yoga Podcast. My name is Jessica, and this week I decided to come on and just talk right to you guys. I have so much fun releasing all of the interviews I'm doing, and I'm learning so much from people around the world doing this work, and it's so inspiring. But once in a while, I like to come on and just talk to you guys a little bit about what's going on for me right now, as I feel like we're kind of all in this together. We're all doing our thing, trying to, day by day get through this time when we're 18 months, 19 months into a pandemic. And I think the hard part for me has been, I am based in New Jersey in the United States, and we had a few months this summer when it was really looking like things were getting better. And the mask mandates were lifted even for indoors if we were vaccinated, and it started to feel normal again. So it was really hard when by the end of July, things just started taking a turn with the Delta variant. And it felt like we were right back to square one. And it was hard to get like that little taste of freedom and of how things used to be and come back here to where we are. So I'm not sure if others can relate. I know depending on where you are in the world, this is affecting us all in different ways. But it's been so long that we've been in this. And I just want to acknowledge for everyone listening that this isn't easy. And this isn't something we've ever done, and to allow yourself grace and allow yourself to feel all the emotions and allow yourself to do the best you can without any added pressure. I can speak to being a parent in these times, and that has been my greatest challenge, having 2 small children at home and being pregnant with my third. It's really hard to navigate parenthood in general, and I've found this pandemic parenting to be just parenthood on steroids. All the worries, the anxieties, the things we want for our children have become so complicated, and every single choice feels like a life or death decision, honestly. It's really hard. So shout out to parents out there. Shout out to kids yoga teachers who are working with kids right now and who are there for children and who are allowing them to be in their bodies and giving them a safe space. You're doing such important work. I want you to remember that. Our work is more important now than ever. And I want everyone to keep going. And if you're feeling burnt out and if you're feeling exhausted, remember there's a whole community behind you. There are people all over the world who are doing this work, who are passionate about this work, and we all know how hard it is to show up for children when sometimes it's hard to show up for ourselves. So I just want to offer you inspiration today to keep on going. And if you're having trouble right now, if you're feeling burnt out, reach out to our community on the Kids Yoga Podcast. You could reach out via Instagram. You can email me, thekidsyogapodcast@gmail.com. We're here for each other. And there are lots of episodes for you to listen to hear other kids yoga teacher perspectives. I find hearing other people's stories and learning about their inspiration, their passion, it always fuels me and gives me more energy. So, there's a whole library of episodes out there for you to listen to. There's also my YouTube channel. If you want to actually see the conversations happening, head there. But acknowledging all of you today that are listening, that are doing this work, it's important and it's necessary. And I thought I would share my own personal story and experience with COVID. Last month, COVID came into our home, and my children and myself all tested positive for COVID. My husband did not. He was able to stay healthy. I am vaccinated. My husband is vaccinated. My children are not because it's not available for them yet. And it started out with my daughter, and she tested positive. She basically just had a runny nose. That was it. Thank God she didn't have any severe symptoms. A few days later, my son, who's just got tons of energy, asked to take a nap. So I was like, uh-oh, that's a red flag. So I got him tested. He was positive. And a few days later, I started feeling a little sick. I did an at-home test, and I tested positive. And I am pregnant, so I was definitely nervous. Both of my children had very mild symptoms. Like I mentioned, my son was maybe a little more fatigued than normal. He had a runny nose. That was the extent of it for them, and it only lasted a few days for them, thankfully. And then when I got sick, I started with the scratchy throat, and then by the next day, I woke up with a low-grade fever, which was scary because when you're pregnant, it's not good to get a high fever. It could be very dangerous. And even though I'm vaccinated, I think because of my weakened immune system in pregnancy, the virus kind of took a hold. So had a low-grade fever, started being very fatigued. It was a deep fatigue that I've heard other people describe. It's a physical fatigue, but also a mental one, where an example I can give is like in the morning I made a very simple breakfast for my son and daughter. Like I'm talking Cheerios with milk and like instant oatmeal that I microwaved for my son. And after doing that for them and putting their breakfast out, I was in tears because I was so exhausted and like couldn't fathom doing anything else. It was like my brain was like, that's enough. I couldn't do any more. So the fatigue was very real, and laying down and resting and sleeping, it was not pleasant. It wasn't like nice rest. It was just a very unpleasant, uncomfortable feeling the entire time. And by the second night, my low-grade fever came back, even though I had taken Tylenol 2 hours prior. The fever was kind of fighting through. And I was in touch with my doctor, and basically they were like, okay, if we can't get this fever down by maybe taking a cold bath and doing cold compresses, you'll probably have to come into the hospital for us to monitor you, because we don't want you having a long fever that won't go down, while pregnant. Was able to get the fever down through a cold bath, and it was scary. That was the scariest night when I thought I might have to go into the hospital. Thankfully, I only had the low fever for about one more day, and then it dissipated. The fatigue lasted a few more days, and I had a few dizzy spells where I'd feel kind of normal and then suddenly get very dizzy and have to lay down. And then I lost my taste and smell for 2 days, which was a very upsetting experience. We don't realize, or I didn't realize how much joy you derive, or I derive from taste and smell. I think we all do. Not being able to smell or taste my food, not being able to just, this is a funny one, but not being able to know when my son needed a diaper change. It was so strange. My daughter's like, you need to change his diaper. I'm like, really? No smell, nothing. So that was eye-opening, just realizing how much of life is about the senses and taking in that sensory input, and making a minestrone soup and not being able to smell the onions and garlic or the vegetables cooking, and then spending time on making that soup and eating the soup and not tasting it. I was just like, whoa. So luckily that only lasted a few days. I do think my entire experience was accelerated because I was vaccinated, thankfully. But overall, it was just, it was an experience that gave perspective. I'm thankful we came out the other end and that we're okay. The worst part was getting through it and not knowing if we would be okay, if I would be okay, if my baby would be okay. He is good. I've since been to the doctor, and his heart rate is great, and he's moving around a lot. And my doctor told me a lot of women have gotten it, and their babies are totally fine. So I just wanted to share that experience, because whether you've experienced COVID or been trying to run from COVID as I had been for 18 months, it's like it finally caught me, and it was the greatest fear and the biggest nightmare, and we got through it, and I'm so thankful we got through it, and not everybody gets through it like that. So I want you all to know this thing that we're all experiencing it's very real, it's very scary. We're all doing our best, and that's all we could do right now. So anyone out there who's had experiences with COVID, who wants to share their story, please do let me know. And thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for listening. Like I said, keep doing the work and keep taking care of yourselves. If we don't take care of ourselves, we can't take care of the children in our lives. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. And I'll be back next week with an interview. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you'd like to support the Kids Yoga Podcast, here are a few ways you can do that. Visit www.thekidsyogapodcast.com. Here you'll see a link to my Patreon page, and you will see different monthly subscriptions which will offer you added benefits. You can also contact me through the website and see all of the episodes that have been released so far. In addition, I truly appreciate those 5-star reviews and ratings, because it just brings so many more people to the show, and it just means the world. So if you feel compelled, a rating and review, and press that subscribe button as well. So if you want to get in touch, shoot me an email, thekidsyogapodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow the Kids Yoga Podcast on Instagram and on Facebook. Again, thank you so much for being here.